Hey, good morning, Scott, and good afternoon. This is Jari Salomaa. I'm the CEO of Valo.ai. I'm pleased to host our latest episode on the Valo podcast series with Scott Stafford. Good morning, Scott.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be here. And I know that it's already in the afternoon in Finland. So I appreciate that you still have lots of energy. And I'm excited to dive into this important topic.
Absolutely. Always energy when Scott is in the room. So this will be great. So I was thinking, from terms of topics for today, to first, let's get Scott introduced to the ecosystem. You're very well known, from your own network, and but there's always more interesting people to meet. And yeah, but like let's bring to the discussion some topics around Salesforce security. I
Right.
was thinking we could touch base on the access controls and some of the challenges now that we have more apps and AI connected to Salesforce, as well as talk about a little bit about costs and what does
Uh,
that mean when you have more services and Salesforce is moving to consumption-based licensing and all of those kinds of things. So how does that sound, Scott?
that's perfect. I'm really excited. I think you hit on things that are really points of interest to everybody, right? Trust is key, right? Making sure that you keep the cost in sync, right, for your clients, and then really making sure that you are able to do your best job, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to is it's your passion, it's your love to actually do a good job, to keep the security posture correct. And it's getting overwhelming out there. So this is going to be awesome. I really appreciate this.
Of course, yeah, absolutely. So for those who don't know me, I'm Yari, CEO of Valo. I worked at the Salesforce platform product team. I built Salesforce Shield, event monitoring, transaction security, also a free utility called the Salesforce Security Health Check that runs the configuration scan in your org of what is the password policy and all kinds of trust services, bringing you in the community more trust services from Salesforce. And since then, I work with ServiceNow also, so I know that platform as well. And then being on the mission with Valo to make managing and governing Salesforce security easier. And
Right.
we're headquartered in San Francisco with an R&D team in Finland, and I'm right now visiting the office here in Finland and returning back in August back to California. But hey, Scott, would be great to hear, I think, from your own words. How did you get connected with the ecosystem, and who is Scott? And what keeps you busy?
Yeah, I would love to dive in really quick to highlighting what Kari just said. He's actually has an incredible location in San Francisco. So I want to encourage everybody. He's often hosting sauna events right near Fisherman's Wharf, right in that area. So definitely, I went there and I was overwhelmed. He even took me up to the roof. So it's pretty cool. Now, I want to let everybody get to know me a little bit. So I want to introduce everybody how I got introduced to the ecosystem and then what is really important to me. So for me, it was actually at a Dreamforce many years ago. It was one of the larger ones. And I didn't actually have a ticket. I was actually with somebody and I just saw the energy in the air. And I said, hey, I got to actually somehow get in there. So I managed to actually get into one of the sessions and I fell in love with it. I said, the people, the energy is what drew me in. I mean, I always loved technology, but actually seeing people care for one another and take care of one another was just something magical that is kind of rare in the tech space. A little bit about what I'm doing now. I am an architect. I'm working on writing a book, kind of so a book on AI, how to out-human AI, or how to let your human skills augment the experience and really give you a cutting advantage, core advantage over that. And then I'm working as an evangelist for Peak Logic and doing a lot of promotion pieces for different companies. So I'm passionate and about helping people, right, to be able to understand complex systems and then just making sure that trust is kept up within our ecosystem.
Man of many hats and man of many talents, and of course, unforgettable energy. Whenever I see Scott in any of the community events, I would say equally. We connected in TDX, I think, in early spring, and then beginning of the summer in the Lake Tahoe
Oh
Tahoe
yeah.
Dream Conference, and Scott is fantastic to have in all of these events. He knows everybody. Everybody knows him. He's like a amazing connector of people, but also an expert and also a lot of knowledge around Salesforce. So kind of jumping maybe in before we kind of talk about technology itself, let's talk about some of the uh, when we think about security, especially, like, I would say one thing that I remember when working for Salesforce platform team, we always said trust is our number one value. We take security very seriously and offer them services. But at the same time, we also talked about how security is a shared responsibility. Salesforce provides the tools, but then you as a customer or a consultant, you're responsible to configure them correctly.
Right.
Which is a big reason why I built some of these tools to give them more information to make the right decision. But I feel that still today, a lot of, I've probably talked more than 100 customers in the beginning of the year, and many of them don't feel that they are the security experts. They feel that they are the business experts. They want to grow the business. They know a lot about Salesforce, but not necessarily security experts. And now, as the landscape and the platform is changing so rapidly, I
Right.
wonder what thoughts you have, Scott, around reskilling or learning more and mastering this like complexity that we many in the ecosystem are facing today. That not only you understand about human business logic and humans clicking on a screen and managing sales processes and custom support, but now increasingly apps and even AI. So
Yeah.
what can users really do? Or do you have any concrete examples or thoughts?
Yeah, you said two things that really struck a chord with me. You said how important trust is, and then you said the word reskilling. So we all know that trust is the beginning of any personal and business relationship. And when people trust you, even though you might not think you're an expert, they're trusting you with their system. So trust comes into play, and it's your duty to find the resources that you need to uphold that trust, right? That is key everywhere I go. I mean, I just saw another message from Starbucks. Everybody is having to reskill, right? We are going to be we're in the fourth industrial revolution, just at the beginning of the big AI wave. And there's a lot of new toys on there, but there's a lot of new potentials. The threat posture is increasing. Like everything is changing very, very quickly. And it is really important that you take a minute and you think about it is when you get a client, you would say, well, what's this relationship about? I mean, there's the exchange of, the contract, the money, but it's really about trust between you and them. And there are times where I believe that you would say, yeah, I'm really good at offering the integration piece. I really understand what the business value is going to be for them. But you might say, hey, we're not experts in security, but that is where you got to find resources. You got to educate yourself. You got to make sure that you're providing one of the most important parts of any relationship or that transaction is that's upholding that trust. So that's why when I met you, Kari, and you are a legend, by the way, right? Definitely someone who's built all those different capabilities for the sales. I was like, wow, I just studied about these on my architect exam, and then I get to meet the guy that was actually on the team creating it. It was incredible. So knowing you and then knowing your dedication, right, to upholding security. And I think that probably when you got into this realm, right, and you look to develop tools that you're like, this is really what's at the heart of Salesforce. They say it's their number one core value, and it is because it's the beginning and end of every relationship. You break that trust, you don't find the resources to keep people's data that they entrusted you with safe, it's going to be a big issue. It's hard to earn back.
That's right. And it's so fundamental at the core of everything. And I feel that like, big brands like, look at the Nordic companies like Volvo was inventing seat belts and then I think contributed those to the community. And now I think most cars have seat belts and
Yep,
even like Volvo driving as a company with their safety that, it's a safe car.
it
I think
is.
it's a big part of their marketing, but they also, walking the talk, they actually have been investing into technologies and I actually read somewhere that they have these new cameras and they are targeting zero deaths in Volvos. which itself I think is a great goal, of a company. It's also a brave thing to say. And I think when we bring that into the realm of software and Salesforce,
Right,
especially, of course, customer data, what is more valuable to a company than the data they have about their customers? And
right.
it's in the right hands. You're using the right partners, the right apps, and the right type of AI, and it's ethical. It's used in the right way, right?
I love your example there with Volvo because I actually, when taking some business classes, they highlight that story right in the class. So when you take it seriously, you might even find out that later on you're going to be in a textbook. I mean, this is really paramount to business, right? Upholding that trust. And if you meet a client and you say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is how we're partnering to keep your data safe, you are going to definitely win a friend. I mean, they're going to be like, okay, now I really feel that you understand not just the value proposition you're bringing, but I can trust you with our resources, with our data, which is becoming more important every single day. So I love that you brought up Volvo. That's amazing.
Yeah, I think yeah, I love the points, and maybe double clicking a little deeper on this is that one big problem after. So of course, at Valo we are building a product trying to make managing and governing Salesforce security as easy as sliced bread. It's needs to be easy, well packaged, right information, right slices for the right audience, but. Uh,
Perfect.
the reality, I think, after talking to a lot of customers, it's not quite that because, and especially one area I think rose above the others in customer discussions is access control. There is the Cheryl Feldman, product manager, pushed out these announcements from Salesforce that they are retiring profile permissions and moving to permission sets. Then they took the decision back and but they're yet recommending customers to use permission sets. I think the reality is that most customers have profile permissions, they have permission sets, they have sharing rules, they have multiple layers of configurations, and then ultimately you ask a question that who can see what, how are those configured in a most granular way. The result is that they have way more administrators than they actually should have. They have a much more broader set of permissions in profiles for everybody, even though they don't really use those features.
Right.
So I think there is a vision, and then there is a reality of what actually seems to happen. And then also, I think the third point is that making that granular access control, making it easy, making it like very auditable, is very hard. People are looking at the mountain like you have back of you. Only very few people have climbed through that. I think is it Alex Honnold has a great movie on National Geographic when they are free soloing that. It's incredible to watch, by the way. But like very few have those skills. So question to you, Scott, there are not many people like you. There are not many architects. There are not many people that have the certifications and the experience to design security and trust into these business systems. How do everybody, we might have beginner admins listening to this podcast and wondering how do they get the skills to re-architect and redesign security in the right way. So do you have some ideas maybe for the community or what, of course, you can educate yourself. There's tools, there's methods. So what would be best practices or some advice from Scott when thinking about this access control and complexity that is constantly growing as Salesforce produces more features, more product, and now with, apps and AI on top of the human users?
Yeah, I think I would try to normalize it in your mind to understand that you're going to get into a company. You literally are probably going to find out, hey, everybody's an admin, or like the security posture is totally crazy. And that's what I inherited one of my first orgs I was operating. And I was quiet because I thought I was the only one. I thought that this was just literally crazy. And somehow I winded up with the worst company. And as I raised my voice, right, I found out this was actually very common. So normalizing it and actually not being afraid to talk about it, right? because then you can get advice to say, like, how are you going to slowly go through the process to try to understand the system? I want to give a fun example. We all heard of SolarWinds breach. It wasn't very long ago, right around 2020. And this is a very large corporation with lots of professional people, but they did not configure everything right. They even, had some breaches where people were able to go in there, right, with certain permissions and then add other permissions. So a large company, right, normalized didn't have it under control. So normalize it and then find the resources. Once you've identified something that's a weakness, find the resources. For you personally, you can go over, you can make it every day, do 15 minutes of just reviewing the different protocol that Salesforce has to go ahead and keep your system safe. But also, I think where Valo comes in, things are going to get tricky, right? You're not going to just have a few users. You're going to have tons of agents. You're going to have all kinds of things connecting to your system. So sooner rather than probably later, you're going to need to use tools. You're going to need to use AI to augment your abilities, right? As a fun tool to be able to understand what's going on in the system so that you can take action, right? It is going to be very, very complicated out there. Even for me, I'm like, I can't keep track of that many different things entering the system. So I think normalize it, right? Talk to people about it to make sure you feel like, hey, this is something we should be talking about. I understand it happens everywhere. Find the resources yourself. I mean, if you're not going to implement AI yet, make sure that you're refreshing the different security things that Salesforce has up there. Check your security posture as much as you can. And then also get ready, dive in and figure out where the world's going. Look ahead and then try to understand the new landscape.
That's some great insights, and thank you, Scott. So, kind of normalizing the situation, seeking peer support, talking to others, and then, for instance, like researching or using a tool like Valo. And thank you for the shout out, and of course, we are on a mission to really unveil what the users in Salesforce are doing, whoever they are, whether they are human users, apps, AI. We provide the insights, what they can do and what they
Right.
actually are doing. And that is actually a great segue for the second topic around budgets and cost. So, of course, before assigning permissions or access controls to apps and users, you need to assign a license. So one of the things we talked about, with customers throughout this year is first that there's growing cost. Salesforce wants to sell you more. Consultants want to sell you more of their services. Everybody wants to kind of increase their growth.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to grow, essentially. So now I think the challenge is also that when Valo has gone into trials with some of our customers, we have seen that, for instance, like we have in the first half of this year, 38,000 Salesforce core license users connected to Valo. 2,200 of those don't necessarily need the core license. They could do off with a platform license.
Right.
I don't exactly know the price that these customers are paying for their Salesforce, but we can estimate it's some $300,000 a month. And while you might not be able to get that money back from Salesforce, that could be a new budget you can actually spend elsewhere in Salesforce. Maybe Agentforce, maybe Slack, or use some other ecosystem tools
Right.
that are priorities for the organization at that moment. So not only security, but power of the observability of understanding what your users are doing. So I'm curious on, when you worked, Scott, with different organizations, do they have, endless wallets, endless budgets? Now we have consumption-based licenses, login licenses. They seem like a hard to plan around that, like, how much money I need to put in or something that, is consumption-based. What if I get a spike on Thanksgiving, or, there's certain kinds of activities that take place. So any thoughts for admins and architects, like how to cope in this changing world from like user-based licenses to consumption, and any advice from you on how to cope with the situation?
Yeah, I want to talk about a little story that I often tell people when I give my core value speech, and it is about trust. And I talk about how a company entrusted me with their credit card. it was my job to always pick up the tab for the business meeting. And I noticed that when the bill came, it was padded by thousands of dollars extra with alcohol fees that we really didn't drink. And I, you know, talked to the waiter and I brought him over and I just said, yeah, this is, our company could have just, it was a multi-billion dollar company. We could have just let that slide or that, I wouldn't have done anything. But I said, no, this is not right. You've entrusted me with this credit card, right? You've entrusted me with your money and your resources. And I noticed that, when I was all done, the CIO was kind of looking at me like, yeah, that's great. You care about our resources, right? We trusted with you. You could have just signed it, but you looked at it and you said, hey, this is not right. It's not a good relationship for that business and us to have anyways. So I think that comes along with, let's normalize it, right? When you are put in a position, whatever it is, right? You implement a system and you don't want to be, take it seriously, right? You don't want to be lazy and overlook how they're using their resources. So understand what licenses they are using, right? Understand what the whole posture is and how that money could be used better. I mean, you can think about this just with your kids. If you handed your young child a $20 bill and they didn't actually, they went over there and came back with a pack of gum and said, hey, I bought this gum and it was, $10. You're like, well, I'm not sure that you really, valued my money, right? That you really, upheld that trust. I gave you the money. I thought you would get a good deal on gum, but you kind of wasted it. So I think a lot of parents have had that experience either with our own kids or watching other people. So I really think normalize it, think about it, right? Understand that that's your responsibility, right? As an admin or something, it is your responsibility to understand how the money's being spent, right? You can just overlook it, you might think, but people are watching, people are going to know, and it's about yourself, right? If you uphold trust and build that relationship, right, it's going to further your career. And then I think along those lines, talk to people. I mean, you're going to hear at so many conferences that we all talk about how Salesforce, they have the selling element of it where they're always trying to say, hey, you need this license or that license. And as soon as you bring it up, people say, well, that we experienced that too. And this is how you handle that situation. Or this is how you negotiate with Salesforce. How many discussions have I had to get the most or normalize and say, hey, what are you paying for your licenses compared to somebody else? Make it transparent. And then your company is going to be bringing to light all of these licenses that you might not even need. And that will be like an epiphany. I mean, I've seen some of your demos where you bring it out. You're like, wow, there's just so much money that could be saved and then reused to make a difference. And that's just exciting and incredible. So I love what you're doing. And then I love bringing this up because a lot of people just think that, hey, you're just there to do your job, but you're actually there to actually monitor the whole system and their money and resources.
Right, that's right. And then I'm also thinking about that, like there's also a lot of third-party solutions, managed packages that not necessarily we're not necessarily only talking about Salesforce licenses, but solutions overall.
Right.
Often we tend to add in, 8 years ago, somebody worked in an org and built an integration, built a system, brought something on, but then the priority shifted and nobody had the time to go back. So this kind of technical debt that is still consuming your APIs, it's still there, and you're in a way paying for it. So I think all of that, I think, falls into this category of understanding and observing Salesforce. But hey,
I
yeah, go
I think
ahead.
we should touch a little bit more on that. I think it's not even that those systems are connected and that you don't mean to disconnect them. You just get busy. Let's just be honest where we are right now, right? Things are happening really fast. So you might implement something and hey, it needed to stay in place for 5 months. But the world's changing. AI is here, right? Every day you're learning, you're adopting, and you forget about it. Then you go back a year later and you're like, oops, I had the best intentions. I see that we didn't need that. You just need something monitoring and saying, hey, what are these different apps that we've connected? Are we even using them? Right. And then, make that evaluation. And I think we're going to need to have AI tools to help us in an AI world, right? It got more complex, right? I think we're all experiencing that right now. It's like, yeah, it's really hard to keep up with AI and learn. So I personally use AI all the time to help me learn AI. I use the ability to scan different things and summarize this article for me, or go ahead and read this back to me, right? And summarize it in voice mode so that I can keep up with everything that's happening. So use the tools out there, right, to make sure that you do your best intention, right, to make sure that, hey, if something was connected, let's make sure that we reevaluate it 6 months later to see if we really still need that app there connected.
Yeah, we at Valo, we have actually analyzed 1,500 App Exchange and Salesforce ecosystem apps, and we've given them a security score based on their terms of service, their familiarity, and what they do. And interestingly, I think there are a lot of organizations out there, and quite frankly, we can't find any solid evidence of their compliance or privacy policy and the way they process the information. They could be selling your information, for all I
Right.
know. And
Yeah.
these low scoring apps, even though yes, Salesforce has a great security review process in App Exchange, but there's a lot of updates. There's changing functionality once you're kind of initially in the store, and there's a lot of apps that are just installed outside the store. And I
Yeah.
think a key question for organizations is that um, understanding what those systems are, what is the relevant risk they consume, and then basically be able then to make data-driven decisions based on an element or feature like security score, that which are the most appropriate tools for our company, for our solution to use.
Yeah, and along that line, even when you get an app installed, sometimes breaches happen because there was an update and you didn't go in and update their software. They're like, "Yeah, you had that in there. We actually fixed that security patch, but you haven't done that update in over 2 years." So this topic is being championed all over. I hear Matt Myers telling so many stories about what happened at Coca-Cola, what happened at Disney. It's happening at major corporations, right? And it's not that people don't want to actually do the right thing. It's just becoming really overwhelming. I mean, there is so many
Yeah.
connected apps. There are going to be so many new users, agentic users on your system. You're going to need to normalize it, talk about it, and then educate yourself on what can be done. Use AI systems like Valo to understand, right, the security landscape. It's going to be crucial. I love it.
Thank you, Scott. Also, I think there's the angle that a solution from 5 years ago might have been sold. It might have been bankrupt. The assets might have been distributed to different individuals altogether. So I think it's
Right,
important for organizations to truly know, where is my data going. And
right.
one of the Valo features outside the security score is also to look into the IP traffic. Where does it actually go? What geographies, what
I love it.
countries, and through this, I don't know if you saw the news on this Scattered Spider group, a group of young individuals, English and kids from UK and US. It's a large group. They've been around for a long time, but recently they really started going after Salesforce customers, and I think in the press they've referred to Marks and Spencer, Harrods department store, Aflac, and I think Qantas Airlines, and
Yeah,
they basically figure out a way to a user that has high privileges, high permissions. So those permissions that sometimes people give a little bit too generously, and they call and they pretend they're from the IT department, and granting permissions to the apps is as simple as clicking AppSec, just allow, boom, and it's
yeah,
done. And that's all the cyber criminals really truly need in order to introduce a rogue version of a data loader into the Salesforce org, and then these cyber criminal teenagers to extort, cryptocurrency from these organizations. Luckily, I think few of them got caught in the UK. Young individuals, using their I think computer talents, unfortunately, in questionable ways, but something to be vigilant. So I think like not just understanding, the design of permissions, licenses, security scores, but going in deeply to realize that this data loader, DocuSign, whatever version of an app, looks like DocuSign, it tastes like DocuSign, but is not DocuSign.
yeah.
So I think it's important to remember and remind for everybody to be vigilant and use tools to monitor access to Salesforce if Salesforce data is important and trust is ever important for your or the customer organization.
Yeah, you've said the word trust a few times, and I think that the fourth industrial revolution might be about the zero trust policy. It's an idea in security where you don't trust even your users within your company. They could go rogue, right? So for me, I have an interesting example. When I was working as an admin, I was asked to install a program, a third-party app that allowed our information to go to our accountant and go back out. And I initially put myself in as the admin and set everything up. And when I was done with the CEO, I told them, now I'm going to remove myself. I don't want to have anything to do with this, right? Long term. I don't want someone to be able to use, right, to somehow get my password, right? And then be able to get into this app, right? It just makes it safer. And he's like, well, Scott, I trust you. You're in charge of security here. And I'm like, I know, but it just doesn't make sense. Zero trust is the way to go. So understanding that, yeah, you are there to keep the system safe. You trust, the employees, but then at the same time, you want to be weary that someone could get their passcodes or they could become a rogue employee, right? So much is changing in this, in this landscape right now that we really want to come up with a policy of zero trust. Lock down things wherever you can, right? Don't have things connected to your system when you're not using them, right? Just don't do it, right? Use tools like Valo, find out what's there, and then, hey, remove it. If you guys decide you need it 6 months later, reinstall it, reconnect it. But definitely don't have a bunch of loose holes there ready to, take people advantage of your data. That just doesn't make sense.
Some really great insights. Thank you so much, Scott. Maybe the last question. I know you attend a lot of different events. So where can the community connect and find Scott in the coming months? Of course, we have Dreamforce in October, but how is your August or September looking like? Are there some community events you're going to be attending? And then, of course, we're going to attach our LinkedIn profiles into this. And if you have any questions or comments, I hope, Scott, you're okay if people reach out to you and ask for any follow-up questions based on these topics that we talked about here today.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm really passionate about this. So I would love to connect. I would love to talk to people and hear your experience, and we can all normalize this and then find the tools and recommendations together. Now, for me, I'm actually going to be headed out tomorrow to Santa Barbara for Santa Barbara Dreaming. In August, I'm planning on being at Mile High Dreaming. And then I'm hoping, right, and then I think it's in September that I'm going to be getting together, right, with the Valo team out in Newport, right, for SoCal Dreaming. It's going to
SoCal
be
Dreaming.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing.
It'll be our first time there, and really looking forward seeing beautiful Newport and all it has to offer in the Southern California community.
Maybe we'll even find some kind of sauna in that area.
Stay tuned. Stay tuned. We'll publish an event page on Valo's website and go and register and stay tuned for some further announcements on our events. And also as a reminder for those in San Francisco, we are hosting the San Francisco Salesforce admin user group after a very long hiatus. The first event this year in the Valo offices. So go to the trailhead.com, look for the user groups in San Francisco, and hope to see you all there.
Perfect. I would actually like to end this a little bit with a thank you, right? I want to thank you for your dedication all these years to trust, to security, right? And then even after leaving Salesforce, you kept that going. You're looking for solutions out there that help us, right? To help us to understand the posture, to give us the right resources. So thank you. I mean, that's deep down inside, that's what your whole career has been about, right? You have a calling, right? Probably when you're a little child to say, hey, I want to make sure that everything is up and right and that you keep the system safe. So I really do appreciate you have infected and influenced my life a lot. And I love all the resources that you're building and bringing to the table. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Scott, so much. Also, amazing individual community advocate. I appreciate everything you do in the community, connecting people, and your contagious energy is just spectacular. So thank you for this great half an hour. This was a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe and look for latest episodes. And I think this will be a one episode of many to come, and we'll hopefully feature Scott in future topics. And if you have ideas, what we should talk about, post comments below, and we'll bring new agenda items for Scott to talk about.
Perfect. Thank you guys for watching this. I really appreciate you giving me my time and then also to identifying this issue.
Awesome. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you. Bye.